Reparations is not the way to right our country's wrong. Third, it is impractical and a non-starter for the United States government to pay reparations.
The left can pull a racist narrative from thin air where it doesn't exist, but when it actually is in their face, they try to avoid it at all costs, especially when the perpetrator is a black person against another white person, which obviously happens more often in this country, given the fact that black Americans are the most murderous group in America by rate.
In 2008, the House of Representatives formally apologized for slavery and Jim Crow. In 2009, the Senate did the same. Black people don't need another apology. We need safer neighborhoods and better schools. We need a less punitive criminal justice system. We need affordable health care. And none of these things can be achieved through reparations for slavery.
When you're talking about MLK, you're talking about Nelson Mandela, and even Malcolm X, they all realized that you had to have a non-racial component to these kind of movements, or there will be resentment. There will be get back. There will be, one of these people will tend to innocent. I don't want to move from one oppressor to the next.
White nationalists coming face to face.
Demonstration by white nationalists at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville.
Okay, I think we've moved past kneeling. When you hear about slavery for 400 years, for 400 years, that sounds like a choice.
In other words, Obama as a black person had a smaller barrier than these three white politicians.
America is not a racist country.
Before we begin, let it be known that black skin does not equal black solidarity, black community, black cohesion, black understanding, black consciousness, black awareness, black communication, black perception, black knowledge, or black pursuit of achievement. All that black skin currently represents in America is a non-minority group tricked into believing that it is in the minority and therefore that it must behave in accordance with that awareness when it is made to be aware of that tad bit of propaganda in the first place. It is therefore nothing more than a starting point in our assessment of whether or not this black-skinned person is so-called kinfolk or skinfolk. And because we live in a white supremacist country by deed, politic, law, and implication, there is a growing number of skinfolk who have chosen to monetize their cowardice by openly embracing a modern-day subservience that was once only solely within the stature, position, and purview of the so-called house nigga, Uncle Tom, bedwench, belly warmer, and or Sambo. This grift, as they call it, is normally accompanied with a Cash App plug and or meaningful funding from white supporters. And those same said supporters will do more harm with these skin folks' grift than the loss of the 30 silver coins that they will pay these skin folk Judases to play Step and Fetch It. Their words in skin is all that their white supporters want. Just like the confession in skin of Nat Turner was wanted several hundred years prior.
If you weren't born in the 1800s, you have no the grudge like you've been.
A lot of you can't grapple with the fact that the black community commits a disproportionate amount of crimes in America.
And for those in interracial relationships or marriages, how can you say you love your people and go out and marry the same people who have oppressed your people?
I guess I have to be the one to break it to you. My people are not your people.
All lives don't matter till Black Lives Matter. It's a racist statement that black people use because they think they're unjustly getting killed by cops.
Oh, y'all don't get it. Y'all just don't get it, do y'all?
David Blight, a history professor at Yale.
Here we go with this BS again. Glam melanin, already got you twice already. I guess third time is a charm. Is this what you looked up? First of all, Memorial Day is not black history. It's part of American history.
So LeBron James. Every time there's a police shooting or...
Woke students at prestigious college reportedly complain that automatic soap dispensers are
I hear a lot of black people on Facebook talking about they want to move to Africa. Well, move your ass to Africa. I ain't going with you.
No, just means I did my research. I wouldn't be wearing this out in public I wouldn't have it tattooed on me. I wouldn't have it on the back of my truck where everybody can see it. If I hadn't done some research in it first.
Another black dude, why is it that we have to acknowledge one another, and if we don't, we have instant beef?
Not a white supremacist. I am not a Nazi. Unless I have a really bad... Oh my...
You want my number, had to hit him with the
Black on black crime is a real thing. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. I would much rather go to a Klan rally than any club full of black people.
I figured it out. I know why these dumb motherfuckers think that they're African so bad. Because for so long, they've had the term African American shoved down their fucking throat that they don't even recognize themselves as American. They just, I'm black. Call me Captain Black Man.
Swinging in the southern breeze.
Bro, the song hard. Stop trying to make everything so serious, bro. It ain't that serious, bro. It is not that serious. That's probably why our ancestors was slaves now, bro, because they took everything so serious. Y'all was so gullible, bro. Pick the cotton. Okay? You couldn't tell the generation now. Pick the cotton. We'll look back at you. You pick the cotton. Bro, y'all so gullible.
My white brothers and sisters out here, I love you. And what I'm finna do to this little bitch, don't take it personal. Because I got white friends and sisters on here that would love to stomp this little fucking girl with a
This is awkward. I'm not gonna pick you.
So why are we here today? We are here today because a belly-warming bedwench of white supremacy stated that black people, Africans, African Americans, Afro-Latinas, and all those that fit within that demographic and or phenotype are the most murderous people in this country and by implication the entire world. As was said before, her words and skin is all that white supremacy needs. They do not care for her in any other meaningful fashion, and to that point they can find her a dime a dozen within their own race. But it's the skin, you see, the skin that is oh so very important. When white supremacy can find itself a good nigga, and I mean a good nigga, to come out and speak so authoritatively against her own reflection, not her people. We aren't their people because they don't claim us. She's not speaking against us. She's literally speaking against her own goddamn reflection, wishing that she was not haunted daily by her inadequacies in her efforts to verbally overcome the non-conditional gift of her own damn skin. And when you can get a good nigga to be so eloquent and forceful in their disdain for their own color skin, it impliedly and quietly justifies the white racists who might feel unjustified in their hatred of the very same thing. That is how corrupt the mind and psychosis of the modern day bedwench is. And their masters love it. Thus goes and explains the wickedness of their own foul unions. But because this grifting bedwench, belly-warming Beelzebub bozo has once again attempted to platform herself by deplatforming us as a people, I will go ahead and state my piece on this wretched, vile, corrupt, and basic waste of melanin.
Candace Owens. That rotten bitch. She's the worst. I can't think of a worse way to make money. She's the most articulate idiot I've ever seen in my fucking life.
Now, it is true. According to the most recent FBI and United States Census statistics, black people do make up approximately 13.4% of the national population. That number, of course, is not adjusted for the Hispanics, Indians, and Islanders who refuse to be identified as black regardless of skin color, and are arrested for homicides at a rate of 55.9%. Whereas white people make up 76.3% of the national population, that number too is not adjusted for the 60% of the 18.3% of Hispanics that identify as white or are compelled to, as well as Asians, and are arrested for 42.3% of all homicides. Now, there are a few elephants in the room. One is arrest versus conviction. I know that may be an insignificant detail for white supremacy and its bedwenches, but in this country, you are still presumed innocent even after an arrest for a crime. It is not until you are actually convicted for the offense that you become the criminal that white supremacy and its bed winches would have you assume occurred the moment handcuffs were placed on you. 2, according to the FBI, white supremacists have thoroughly infiltrated and assumed positions of control within local law enforcement. But that's really not news to black people, now is it? In fact, we know that white supremacists aren't just in local law enforcement. They're in the courts, politics, nursing, bars, taverns, eateries, media, schools, and other seats of government. But it does beg the question, do we honestly believe in cause and effect? Because if we do sincerely hold that belief, then we cannot be remiss in looking at the demographics of the prison population, effect, and how the policing of white supremacists has brought that into being. Cause. 3, according to highcourt.co, anywhere from 2 to 10% of the total prison population is innocent of the crimes that they are currently imprisoned for. According to the Sentencing Project, there are 2 million people currently in prison. That is 200,000 people languishing in jail serving time for a crime that they did not commit. And with black people making up the majority of that said population, it is likewise easy to assume that we make up the bulk of innocent prisoners as well. That's basic cause and effect. Nothing spectacular about that reasoning at all. And of course, 4, the historical narrative which directly brought about our current condition and how unreasonable it is to request a people that has been so thoroughly oppressed for several hundred years to simply get over it and pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Even though no other race has been asked to do that. None. All races have been given some form of reparations when wronged and or have been given the benefit of racial ambiguity so that they can benefit from their color in a country that everyone, except these algorithms, says is not racist.
Algorithms are racist because we are racist. Algorithms put people of color at risk for not getting to rent an apartment because of unfair racist blacklists that landlords use, for credit checks that don't work or are unfair and biased, for job searches that only show better paying jobs to people white people. Basically all the algorithms that are in existence, which are everywhere in every possible bureaucracy, have problems that need to be addressed.
When these factors are correctly analyzed, we arrive at a conclusion which supports the fact that black people are as violent as any other group. Not disproportionately violent, not sociopathically violent, not insanely violent, but just as violent as any other demographic. Now, however, that conclusion also needs to be adjusted to A, reflect and identify how white supremacy and racism brought and brings about that finding of violence as well, and B, though not an excuse, reflect the fact that the majority of these violent offenses are committed against other black people. So why the hysteria over these types of crimes then? On any other day out of the week, month, or year, these people do not give one good goddamn about the condition of black people, their plight, their struggles, their dreams, their life, or their pains. Hell, we can't even get an anti-hate bill, anti-lynching law, or an executive order through a democratic government that we impaneled in large part. So why the concern over us and our self-destruction?
And once the white public is convinced that most of the Negro community is a criminal element, then this automatically paves the way for the police to move into the Negro community exercising Gestapo tactics.
Now, I can admit with all sincerity that black people killing other black people is a very big problem amongst our collective. It is a sickness that we perpetuate on each other in the hopes and dreams of becoming official, recognized, thorough, gangsta, shatta, big homie, or some off-brand, quasi-authentic version of a rapper, the perfect oxymoron. Yet all that is done in the name of a manhood or womanhood that is not of our own creations. It is in no way a coincidence, then, that most famous rappers have zero respect or love for their own people.
How can these people be talking about how they so real and they don't care about our communities? How can they be talking about what they, all this, you know, the hood, like, they don't care about our communities?
But since we are being candid, can our detractors admit their own indiscretions? They always scream this 13-50% narrative because it validates them in their belief that we are a violent people.
Makes up 14% of the
But let's pose another question, shall we? According to Statista.com, white people make up, at the most liberal expression, 9.77% of the world's total population. So what percentage of the world population makes up a mere 9.77%, but has been largely responsible for every single major atrocity on the face of this planet when that percentage was much smaller? 70 to 85 million people killed during World War II, 20 to 40 million people killed during the Taiping Rebellion, which was brought on by colonial expansion into China that crushed the Qing government in the early 19th century and destabilized the region. The Dungan Revolt of 1862 through 1877, which saw a death toll of 10 million Chinese due to colonial expansion into Asia, and the Taiping and the Dungan rebellions can be directly linked to the Chinese Civil War of 1927 through 1949, which carried a death toll of 8 to 12 million Chinese. World War I, which saw a death toll of between 15 to 22 million people. The Russian Civil War, which saw a death toll of 5 to 9 million people. The 30 Years' War of 1618 through 1648, where European religious zealots slaughtered each other to the tune of 4 to 8 million. The Napoleonic Wars between 1803 and 1815, which rose the savage impact of white carnage by 3.5 to 7 million deaths. The Second Congo War of 1998 through 2003, which can be directly linked to colonial expansion into the Congo by King Leopold II of Belgium, that itself carried a death toll of approximately 10 million Congolese, whereas the Second Congo War carried a death toll of between 2.5 and 5.4 million people. The French Wars of Religion, 1562 through 1598, which managed to kill off 2 to 4 million human beings. The 100 Years' War, 1347 through 1453, that murdered off 2.3 to 4.3 million. The Korean War of 1950 through 53, a proxy war spurred on by Europeans that caused the deaths of anywhere between 1.5 to 4.5 million people. The Vietnam War of 1955 through 1975, which occurred because of Euro-American desire to spread democracy at the tip of the sword and to salvage the reputation of the French who lost to the Vietnamese. This war brought about the untimely demise of 966,000 to 3.8 million people. The Crusades of 1095 through 1291, which, in the name of their Eurocentric godhead, justified the killing of 1 to 3 million of God's so-called children. The Nigerian Civil War of 1966 through 1970, which came right after the indigenous declared their independence from European colonial rule that lasted over 100 years. This particular war between Christian and Islamic blacks saw the deaths of anywhere between 1 to 3 million Nigerians, and the bloody list runs further into the hundreds of millions, from the ethnic cleansing of the indigenous here in North America, which, prior to 1492, estimated that nearly 60 million natives were present, and just 100 years later, less than 6 million survived. Their contacts with this non-violent people, to the transatlantic slave trade, which brought about the deaths of nearly 60 million black people, to say nothing of the hundreds of years of state-sanctioned violence against their survivors of the slave fields of the South after the American Civil War, which liberally killed off an additional 1 million people. Church bombings, lynchings, public mutilations, skinnings, burnings, eatings, experimentations, and unjustified imprisonment and executions. American apartheid, aka Jim Crow, which inspired Nazi Germany. Financial and political oppression, which saw the razing of whole black-owned communities to the ground, and the redlining and redistricting out of power of black peoples the nation over, and the assassination of every true black leader we have ever had, which, if we are to be honest, is directly responsible for the present-day condition of black people here and around the world. With just this very modest excursion into history and in the present, we can easily see how white people have been directly involved in hundreds of millions of lives lost here and abroad. Make no mistake about it, an acceptable American terminology like capitalism, regime change, or drone strike may appear unassuming and easily regurgitated. Yet behind these word choices mask the truest forms of foreign and domestic destruction the world has ever known. But because the media and the press has perfected the art of manipulating perceptions, many Americans believe that this and more is justified in the interest of democracy. Yet 75 million of these so-called Americans have absolutely no problem with disregarding that idea of democracy when that idea does not fit an Anglo-Saxon agenda. I gladly invite anyone of good or bad intent to highlight where on this planet black people have been responsible for hundreds of millions of lives lost. I will wait. So to the bedwenches and sambos of white supremacy, you may have your opinions, but your facts must be that of everyone else's. Alternative facts is just a more sophisticated way of saying lie.
Now, concerning the poll taken by Newsweek magazine, I think you said that this was the leaders who said that, who went with King and against Mr. Muhammad around 90%. I just told you a little while ago, these leaders that they call leaders, this included Lena Horne, this included Dick Gregory, and this included comedians, comics, trumpet players, baseball players. Show me in the white community where a comedian is a white leader. Show me in the white community where a singer is a white leader, or a dancer or a trumpet player is a white leader. These aren't leaders. These are puppets and clowns that have been set up over the white community and over the black community by the white community and have been made celebrities and usually say exactly what they know that the white man wants to hear.